Hey guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to respond to one of my YouTube comments because I feel like I owe a proper explanation. Um, and I'm just too lazy to type it out, so I'll just go to each point and just kind of give you my take on each point. Here's the comment. Okay, my original video was why High Priest is the worst class. And I gave my reasons in that video, so you can go watch that video. I'll link it in the description. But this person is saying worst class in the game is Sage, in your opinion. I disagree about that. Sage is pretty good. I mean, Sage has like one of the highest magic growths. It's very good for magic busting. You know, just pure magic. If your unit has decent speed growths, they can fulfill both a magic speedster and a magic buster role. So I think Sage is very good at what they do. Like it's just simple. It just works. MK, which is what is MK? MK is Mage Knight? Mage Knight, I guess? Okay. Mage Knight is just better in almost every way. And High Priest being allowed to give Arts Break for some of the most annoying enemies in the okay, let's start with Mage Knight. Mage Knight is pretty good. I do think Mage Knight is pretty good because Chaos Style is just flat 3 speed because you're always attacking physical units, right? Sage does have like a 5% more magic growth than Mage Knight, so it's just something to consider. You know, it's not the end of the world if you do a Sage over a Mage Knight or a Mage Knight over a Sage. I actually like both. The thing about Mage Knight though is you cannot use staves. Sage can use staves, right? And staves are really damn useful. In Mage Knight, you can only use tomes and a physical weapon. So you're saying the High Priest allowed to give Arts Break some of the most annoying enemies in the game? Yeah, I agree. So you know, punching people with arts can break bows, daggers, and tomes, right? Which is of course very useful. You don't want to get poisoned by daggers. You don't want to take retaliation damage by tomes. So, but fists arts are not exclusive to High Priest. Martial Master can use fists. Divine Dragon can use fists as well. And you're saying, you know, that break is going to be very useful even if it's not going to be a nuke. It's useful, but the point of my original video is that it's not optimal. The most optimal thing you can do is kill the unit. Yes, you can break them and let someone else safely finish the unit, but that requires 2 moves. It requires 2 moves to do. And the most valuable resource, especially on player phase, is the amount of moves you get. You have a limited number of moves. For the majority of the game, you only have 12 moves on player phase, which expands to 14 moves in endgame. If you're wasting time breaking first and then killing, that is fine for easy situations, but for hard situations, for endgame maddening, that is not ideal because you have to deal with pre-deployed units combined with reinforcements, and you're going to get overwhelmed if you're forgoing efficiency to break first and then kill. Now, a Martial Master can just kill them. Like if you have a mage or a Thoron mage, and you can break them first with the first hit, so you won't take retaliation damage, and then you'll just straight up kill them with the Flashing Fist art. Only the Martial Master can use Flashing Fist art. The High Priest cannot use Flashing Fist art. The High Priest can only use Steel Fist art and Silver Fist art, right? So a Martial Master will just be a better puncher, and they'll just delete mages, while a High Priest cannot just delete mages, or will have a hard time doing so. You have to get lucky with RNG, or you have to just maybe use the right character and have a combination of good RNG. And then you're saying for High Priest, Mystical is also a rare class type that can be useful for several different things, especially when Sage is such garbage. I don't understand why you think Sage is garbage. You're not really explaining why Sage is garbage. So maybe you can post another comment and then explain why Sage is garbage. I don't think Sage is garbage because Sage does have mystical type, you know. High Priest also has a metric buck ton of res, making it perfectly capable of res tanking. That's not exclusive to High Priest. Other units can also be res tanks, especially when the Flyer Twins can't most of the time due to the amount of enemy wind tomes in the game. I think you're saying the Flyer Twins, or so maybe the Griffin Knight and the Wyvern Knight cannot res tank. I mean, I don't really think Elwind is that strong against flyers in this game. I mean, it does do a significant amount of damage, but it's not just straight up deleting flyers, like how bows just delete flyers. And also, you know, Sage has the exact same magic, or sorry, resistance growth as High Priest. So I'm not quite understanding what you're saying there. It's the ultimate utility class. They won't kill, but they allow an incredible amount of consistent options that help the team every turn. I disagree with that. You don't have that much turns, and having a ton of options on a turn on a single unit for one turn, it doesn't matter because the unit can only do one thing per turn. Okay, let's give an example. So say I need to cast Flames with a Dragon Vein with my High Priest, but I also need to heal a unit. You only have one option to do on that turn. You can either do a Dragon Vein, or you can cast Flames, or you can cast, and High Priest has Tomes, you can cast an Elfire, but you can only pick one. So it doesn't help that you have a lot of options. In fact, it actually hurts the High Priest that they have so many options, because they literally can only do one thing per turn. I mean, granted, maybe you can dance that High Priest, but it's still, you know, ignoring the dancer for a second, because, you know, we're just talking about High Priest. It's incredibly limiting. Whereas if I have a class that specializes in healing or just doing one thing, and they do it extremely well, then that class is more valuable, because they can do that every single turn, and they have one role, and they just do that role extremely well, that extremely reliable. The thing about the High Priest is that they're actually gimped in all of the different things that they're given. Like the Elfire with the B tomes is gimped, the Fists at B is gimped, the fact that they have Staves at S is gimped, because you cannot reliably get that S rank staff. I mean, that's cost 50,000 gold in donations to Illusio to get that S rank staff. And the best staves like Warp and Rescue, you don't need S staves, and other classes can use those staves as well, like Royal Knight. Sage can even use those staves. The efficiency argument is one of the strangest arguments I've ever seen for an FE class. It doesn't one-shot, therefore it's not good. That's not what I said. I said it does not have one-round potential. There's a difference. Because a lot of the early game, you are not one-shotting anything. In fact, you have to chip enemies before you can even kill them, for the most part. Just because your weapons are not good, your levels are not good, your stats are not good. But the thing I was talking about was the one-shot potential is just not there with High Priest, especially in Endgame, because it's in the Endgame maps where you start to get overwhelmed by infinite reinforcements plus the pre-deployeds, that efficiency becomes a big factor in Endgame, and you have a limiting boundary or limiting output maximum that High Priest is presenting to you. That's the problem with High Priest. It doesn't one-shot, therefore it's not good. Applies to builds more than does to classes, and ignores all defensive utility for a class, as well as any other utility as well. Like, what are you trying to say here? Ignores all defensive utility for a class? But what does that have to do with High Priest? High Priest doesn't have good defense. Are you trying to argue that High Priest has good resistance? Because Sage has the exact same resistance growth as High Priest. If you use a unit that makes your situation significantly safer, or reliably makes your units better at combat. Okay, you know what's really safe? Not having enemies on your ass. That is the safest situation in any Fire Emblem game, okay? And the best way to not have enemies on your ass is to just kill them. That is the absolute safest way to do it. High Priest can delay certain units from getting in your face. For example, a Silence Staff on a Thoron Mage is very useful sometimes, or a Freeze Staff, that's also very useful. But again, it goes back to the main point I made in the original video, was the 2-turn efficiency is still there, right? You're not killing the unit, it's only defensive. And the thing is, High Priest, like all of these defensive options or these defensive utilities for High Priest, any other class can do that. Sage can do that, Royal Knight can do that. So if you can do those for other classes, but now the High Priest has the gimped offensive potential, then it's just a worse class, period. If you use a unit that makes your situation significantly safer, reliable, again, High Priest is not the only one that can do that. The other classes can do that. Plus, they can output significant offensive damage. Your one action from High Priest benefits several actions within your team. No, that's not true, because your High Priest is taking 2 actions to do something useful, right? It's always going to take 2 actions. Whereas a unit that just one rounds a unit that it has class advantage against is the most efficient contribution to your army that you can do on a single turn on player phase. The enemy HP bar is not the only value in the game. Yes, it is. It is. The whole goal of Fire Emblem is to kill every single unit. That's your first, second, third priority, is to kill all the units. And of course, prioritize the enemy units that are in your face, rather than the boss that's sitting in the back, right? Would you say all dagger classes are bad? I think dagger classes are actually pretty bad, to be honest. Would you say bows are garbage against anything that's not a flyer? Bows are not garbage because they have a specific role, and they do that role very well, which is to delete flyers. Going back to daggers, if the unit using the daggers has good strength, then obviously they're going to appear very strong, right? Would you say bows are garbage against anything that's not a flyer and have practically no one-range options in this game? Are bows garbage because bows attack on player phase? They attack from 2 range, which is safe, and they delete flyers. I think they're pretty good, actually. Should every class be a warrior so that they can one-shot with no defensive utility? What? Should every class be a warrior so that they can one-shot with no defensive utility? Okay, so the issue with warrior is that Merciless, again, it still requires 2 moves to execute. You need to break first with 1 unit, and then you need to finish them off with the warrior, right? So that they can even use Merciless. So from that perspective, actually, warrior is not very efficient if you're relying on Merciless, that is. Now, if you're using a warrior because they have such good strength and they can one-shot enemies because of their high strength, and the unit grows into the warrior class very well, then I think that's a good unit. But I don't think Merciless is that good, especially on maddening, because maddening you can't break bosses, and the enemies that you need the Merciless damage buff against the most are bosses, which it just straight up doesn't work on boss enemies in maddening. Forcing certain options out of the player being locked to player phase because their enemy phase is so awful. That's not a sentence. That's a fragmented sentence, I think. I don't really understand what you're saying. Let me try to figure out what you're trying to say. I straight up don't know what you're talking about here. Maybe you can clarify. I don't know. And then I think you made a reply, and that's because I made a kind of like I said I was too lazy to comment, and I don't think I would convince you, so here I am trying to convince you. So you have my attention, I guess. All right, so shorten something to focus down to the efficiency argument, which is the most jarring thing to me. One-hit KO unit on player phase is the most efficient thing you can do. Yes, it is. That is indisputable. The most efficient thing you can do on player phase. This is vague on its own because it doesn't diverge what one-hit KO on player phase is. One-hit KO, no retaliation. That's actually the best situation because you don't have to spend a turn healing that unit up. One-hit KO with no danger in sight on enemy phase. It doesn't matter what that situation or whether there's impending danger, because it still doesn't change the fact that it's still the most efficient thing you can do. In fact, that's the easier situation. If there's no danger on enemy phase, you're not being threatened by the second squad coming in on you. It's actually technically an easier situation. So because it's easier, it's actually less relevant because it doesn't matter. It's more relevant here because if an enemy is a second squad is threatening that unit, then that's actually more relevant. It doesn't place any context of what one-hit KO entails for that turn and future turns. Here's the thing: it doesn't matter if it's a easy turn or a hard turn, because the easy turns, which are typically early game, you will fight an enemy squad, but they aren't backed up by a reinforcing squad that will attack you, right, or threaten you immediately on the next turn, right? So you can take as many turns as it takes to kill that immediate squad, and usually you will be able to kill that squad with the 10 to 12 moves that the game gives you. So it's really a non-issue. The issue is for endgame, when you have infinite reinforcements on maddening and you have pre-deployed units and you start to get overwhelmed, right? Because that's where the 10 turns that you're given on player phase really, really matter. Like, they really fucking matter. And you have to play extremely efficiently. So that, you know, like I said, for early game, it doesn't matter what the context is. The context that matters is that end game scenario when it's actually pretty dang hard. And that's where the whole efficiency concept is very relevant. Any amount of things that High Priest can do, including Arts Break, can circumvent taking counter damage or eliminate enemy threat ranges on enemy phases, allowing for more extensive enemy phase and future turns, being able to push forward faster with less danger. No, that's not true, because if you're taking 2 units to kill a unit, so you're gonna break with your first unit with the arts, and then the second unit has to come in and finish off that unit. When instead, if you just killed that unit with the first unit, the other unit can advance forward more, right, and spend their move more wisely and more efficiently. So they could do more other things with that move. They could actually heal another unit. If they can use staves, they can aggro or pull the next squad of enemies by getting into the next enemy range. You know, it's just being more efficient. I don't know how to really explain it to you. Like, just being more efficient is objectively better. Yes, there are situations that are more casual where, yeah, you can break the unit and then finish them off safely. But in high pressure situations, you want to be as efficient as possible. And taking 2 units to break that, especially with a subpar unit like the High Priest, especially with their damage output, is not going to cut it. You've essentially added plus X% efficiency to all future units' turns by making regular and consistent arts, tome, and staff plays from 1 unit. No, it's, again, like I said in the first video, any play that the High Priest does is always a 2-turn job. It's always a 2-turn project, right? If they're gonna break with their subpar arts, their subpar fists, then another unit has to attack. That's 2 turns. It's not efficient. If they need to chip with a weak L fire tome because they're stuck at D tomes, and another unit has to come in and finish them off, that's not efficient. If they have to use a silent staff or a freeze staff or a fracture staff to do a warrior merciless combo, another unit has to come in and, whether it's on the next turn or whatever it be, have to finish off that unit. So it's not efficient. I will admit the staves are very good defensive options when shit hits the fan, and that's exactly what I said in the first video. Despite popular belief, Engage is not a player phase only game, and if you believe so, you're playing at less than 50% efficiency at all times. I actually agree. Engage, you know, you can make the game easier on yourself by playing a little bit more on enemy phase, so doing more damage on enemy phase. So I'm not quite sure what you're saying here, and I'm actually not even sure how that relates to High Priest, to be honest. In fact, High Priest cannot play on enemy phase very well, to be honest. Yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much my well thought out response to this comment. I guess if there's more people that want me to make video responses to this kind of stuff, kind of fun, I don't know. Maybe Reddit threads, I don't know. But I like going into depth because it allows me to explain more than what I'm originally allowed to do in my original videos, right? So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.